feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
open wide for some
I
soccer.
don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here. As always, before every episode, we're recording down here at Engel Studio, which is in Tucson, Arizona, for all your audio needs. Just a couple comics who enjoy laughing and talking sports, making jokes. If you follow us on our socials there, which you see below on your YouTube or even Spotify screens, go and give us a follow, like, a subscribe. Follow us on all the types of social media and outlets we put the podcast in. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, let us know. We'll bring up those episodes. Who we got today, Chris?
We're back on the hardwood.
Yes, we are.
And I'm hard. So here we go. We're talking about
this guy.
We're talking about somebody who actually had a lot of influence outside of basketball on like what happened with him. We're talking about Connie Hawkins.
Connie Hawkins.
The man whose prime got taken away.
It was taken away, and it was not his fault.
No, it's kind of crazy when you go over it and how much, because how like big the gambling scandal was in college basketball.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, no. You talk to that guy, you can't play basketball for the rest of your life.
Which is just like, oh, you bastards.
We're breaking your kneecaps. And they're like, no, that was the gambling guys.
I know him because we're from the same place.
Yes.
Anyway, Cornelius Lance Hawkins, born July 17th, 1942 in Brooklyn, New York.
Yep.
In the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. And, well, this is a hotbed for basketball.
Yeah,
this is a hotbed for basketball.
And this is the time when Rucker Park became like the big thing. And it was a very much unorganized thing until you got till like later high school. But it was still probably one of the best, whatever you want to call it, street academies in basketball. Like, you look at so many great players that came out of that.
Going to the University of the Streets, Chris.
That's where that's what I needed.
That's where,
it.
Just like White Lightning, Chris Mullen, everybody.
Ooh.
Basically, born to play basketball. Grew up extremely poor in that area, and basketball was a way out for him. And my God, was he athletic and just an absolute majestic freak with a basketball in his hands.
Well, and he said that basketball became life because it was, a takeaway from like this poverty kind of thing that he was growing up in. And it was definitely because it obviously they didn't have like, you're going to go to the NBA or, you know what I mean? That wasn't like, it was like skateboarding in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? But like
NBA, what is that?
Yes, it was more of like, this is a true pleasure of mine, and then maybe I'll get to go to college.
Yeah, maybe I'll get a college education and get out of here. You're
We'll
thinking
see.
nothing. Well, we're going to talk about student athletes
Oh, my God.
later and some stuff.
So he goes to Boys High School, which is the funniest goddamn high school name.
You think any girls went to boys?
I hope not. Maybe this year.
Maybe this year. Not back in the day. I didn't want to bring up, by age 11, he could dunk.
Yep. Oh, I did see that.
Which is insane. Like, and he's not... He grows into about 6'9", 220, which makes him an athletic, but he's not Kareem at 11 dunking.
Yes.
This dude was an absolute freak leaper. Some people felt he could break the laws of gravity, and he told the Philadelphia Inquirer that someone said if I didn't break them, I was slow to obey them.
That's pretty great.
Because he was just so... He was smooth but powerful, the speed to power, because speed is the name of the game.
Speed's the name of the
game.
game.
But the majesticness of Connie Hawkins did not play really any organized until he was at Boys as a junior.
I thought that was interesting.
Which is
but
crazy.
You kind of see that, but I can't, because obviously he was dunking in middle school, and then they were like, you know what? Now that you're a junior, you could come and play for this. But that was the only report. There wasn't like a reason why. It was almost just kind of like, yeah, okay.
He's like Black Paul Bunyan, almost. I
didn't see that one coming, but I'll take it.
He is.
I'll take it.
He is.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming, though. But he dominates right away.
Leads to New York Public Schools athletic title in 1959 as a junior. Then as a senior, he's averaging 25 and a half a game, and they win the 1960 title. And he's really playing above the rim, not like Kareem, but he's playing above the rim.
Like that
time,
90s movie.
Oh, God, right? Oh, jeez. But just at a time when nobody's doing it.
Yes.
It's like a brand of basketball no one's ever seen. And people who came up during this time period and even later would say, like, yeah, street ball, the NBA hadn't seen that before.
Yep.
Guys are like succeeding with it and creating a whole new brand of basketball on the fly.
Well, and this is what came from playing street ball or in Rutgers and all of that was they said he was one of the best one-on-one players because that's what he grew up playing. So, like, he was 6'9", he had the handles of a guard, and he could pretty much do anything. He was almost like a modern player, but back
he had
then...
a solid outside shot.
Back then, nobody really... I almost like felt like nobody really knew what to do with him, except for we didn't really see if anybody knew what to do with him because it was more of like... let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
He goes to the University of Iowa.
After being first-team parade All-American, a Mr. Basketball USA.
Yep.
Can't play as a freshman at Iowa.
Which it's a standard rule back then.
Even Kareem didn't play as a freshman.
He red shirts. And then we get some wise guys coming in.
We get some good fellas, Chris.
Some good
guys. You see him, he's a good fella.
He's a good fella.
Hey, Hendry. But anyway... There is another, because college basketball in the 50s and the 60s, probably even in the 40s when they were playing it too, a lot of organized crime gambling surrounding it as far as point shaving.
Well, and you look at it for years, these guys were absolutely poor.
Yeah.
They would literally offer them like a couple of $100
a ham sandwich in some
shave
cases.
Points because that's literally they had no money. So these guys were making I don't even know.
Chris,
millions?
You don't need money when you're a student athlete.
Exactly.
Like you don't need it.
It was literally set up for this to happen.
Yeah, like what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Like the mafia, oh no, they don't ignore our market irregularities. They've never done that ever.
The mafia is fucking wild. They're like the IRS. They can take anything they want.
Pretty much.
But that's the thing is like you look at the landscape back then and it really was set up for these guys to come in and just make so much money off of Boston College and Iowa for so many years.
So basically what happened is there are a bunch of college basketball players wrapped up. There's 37 arrests of players. 22 colleges associated with it. And Connie's wrapped up in it, not because he's doing anything. He can't even play varsity games. And he's not shaving, JV games off of points. But him being from New York City and him knowing some of these gamblers, well, the NCAA kind of just throws a whole blanket over it and says everyone's guilty, essentially.
In his case, though, it was so ridiculously egregious that he was just like, okay, so there's absolutely no physical way in which I could have shaved points. And you're going to get black. So they literally like blacklisted him from all, like any NCAA team, he couldn't then
NAIA, they wouldn't let him play in. So basically, there's a New York attorney, and the ringleader of this whole thing was Jack Molinas. How Connie is associated with this is he knows him because his brother borrowed $200 from this guy to help him pay for school expenses, which he repaid even before he played a game at Iowa.
Yep.
Which is, what the hell?
So he almost like
guilty.
He almost gave him he let him borrow $200 for books, and then his brother almost immediately paid it back, and they're like, "Whew, I don't know."
I'm thinking because some of his Iowa teammates, like Don Nelson and his coach, nothing happened to them. Both of whom were not the same skin color as Connie.
Exactly.
I think there might have been something wrapped up in there as well.
I 100% agree with that because they literally were like, all right, he was almost like a face to put on this, being like, isn't this young star? Because obviously college basketball needed to change their, outlook.
Yes.
Because they were just looked at as, the games were just looked at as like, is this fixed? Is this fixed?
It's a little Calciopoli,
So yeah, it was almost a knee-jerk reaction that needed to happen, and Connie gets the worst of it.
He gets the worst of it for doing nothing. So he's not arrested or indicted. Even though the police are questioning him, they don't even let him have an attorney, which is ridiculous. He's expelled from Iowa, can't go to any other NCAA or NAIA schools, and essentially the NBA commissioner, J. Walter Kennedy, says, you're not allowed to play in the NBA.
Yeah,
you are blackballed.
He said he wouldn't approve a contract that any team tried to give him. So it was literally, so even if a team wanted to pick him up, they literally couldn't.
Yeah, basically barred from that. So he decides to go the Sandlot route.
Yep.
Because in 1961,
We start to get a bunch of startups. We start to get a bunch of these leagues that coming out of nowhere.
the 60s were a time of, hey, let's oppose any major professional sports league.
So we get the Will Ferrell League.
Yes. Well, first he goes to the ABL.
No, he goes to the ABL. Yeah,
And he
for a
goes and
year.
plays for the Pittsburgh Wrens.
Yep.
Averaging at 19, probably against guys who were bagging groceries or truck drivers or professional wrestlers at some point in their lives. 27 and a half a game, 13.3 rebounds, leading the league in points per game. At 19 years old, is MVP of the league. The following season, the league folds, but he's averaging almost 28 a game.
Yep. And this is where his career takes not the best turn.
It's not the best turn, and it sucks for him because did he really need college? I don't think he did. He could have been that first, like, Moses Malone,
Yep.
Garnett, Kobe type of guy.
Yep.
To where he was just already
Ready.
to go.
They said that, and I think it was the summer that he was going into Iowa. He played against pros, just like in a pickup game.
Played against Wilt the Stilt in those Rucker Park days.
And they were talking about he was just like, yeah, he was on that level. Like,
which is so damn unfortunate.
yep.
So then he goes full sweet Georgia Brown after that league folds and starts playing with the Harlem Globetrotters.
Which, I mean, this is the Globetrotters era of them being like amazing.
Yeah.
60s to whatever, 90s. But he even talked about it where he was just like, well, my focus on what I was training changed.
Yeah.
So like he was just like, it was so much ball handling. It was so much like little silly tricks, and like it wasn't basketball like you think it.
Well, he's not training to be a professional basketball player. He's training to be a fucking showman.
Yep.
Yeah. And like he said, one of the players lied to him to get in their little dribble and passing thing. He's like, they give you $100 if you're in there. So he's like doing all these moves, and he's like, I didn't get paid.
Yep.
I didn't get paid.
It's brutal.
Those poor Washington Generals, though, having him just dunk all over them.
I just want to make something clear. The Washington Generals have won 3 games. If you went to a Harlem Globetrotter game and the Generals won, that's like a moment in history.
That's like getting a $3 bill.
It's
Like, I mean, that's just...
it's amazing.
It's amazing. But during this time, there are a couple of lawyers that he knows in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
They end up helping him file a $6 million lawsuit against the NBA for basically screwing him over.
So when he's with the Globetrotters, they file this lawsuit, and then they're saying, you should come play for our new ABA startup. My brother has this team.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Pipers.
Which he's very Pittsburgh-centric, which I saw, which is interesting because it felt like he like got into that kind of basketball scene, which couldn't have been very big, and then he comes back to Pittsburgh, and
Well, I mean, he's filing this lawsuit, and they basically told him, hey, you're making dick with the Globetrotters.
Yep.
There is a team that will actually pay you, and they're not going to give a shit about blackballing you because they need players.
Yes.
Because guys are getting traded for washing machines and recording songs called Love Me Sexy. So in 1967-68, he joins the Pittsburgh Pipers of the ABA, and he's immediately the league's best player.
Yep.
Immediately the league's best player.
he immediately turns them into the best team, and you're saying, how do I know that? Because they won the championship.
Leads the ABA in scoring, is the MVP, leads them in minutes per game.
Yep.
So he's a freaking war horse. But he's 20. He's 25. He should be just dominating people in the NBA.
Yeah.
But that season averages 27 points a game, 13.5 rebounds, almost 52% shooting. They go to the ABA finals.
And that's with that tricolor ball.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just
with that weird ball we talked about
Just
in our
saying.
previous episode. That was one of our first ones,
Yep.
too. Shoot. They're down 3-2 in the ABA finals against the New Orleans Buccaneers. Larry Brown was on the New Orleans Buccaneers.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
the
knew
coach.
that. Yeah.
I saw that.
They win game 6. Connie has a great game. They were down 72-59 at halftime and came back. He dropped in 41 points.
Yep.
To force the game 7 in Pittsburgh, and played at Civic Arena, where they filmed Sudden Death, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. Go watch that movie.
Saved all of our lives.
Saved all of them at that Stanley Cup Finals game. win 122-13. Connie had 20-plus points. Best way to cap your first season in professional basketball.
He almost proves to everybody, because I felt like he went from playing in this upstart league, it immediately folds, and they're like, yeah, but that league was bullshit, to going and playing on the Globetrotters, which doesn't have, like, for pro basketball players, like, they're like, yeah, that's cool, but obviously you're not a pro anymore. It comes to the ABA, and he's like, I'm the best player in this league after I was just fucking around for 4 years.
That's what I mean. It's like he had college. Say he goes to Iowa, plays the 3 years there.
Yep.
Where his skill level would have been by that point. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's finally proven to people how great he is.
Yeah.
Following season, the team moves to Minnesota because if you go listen to our NBA ABA merger episode, you should do that. Teams were hemorrhaging money. So a lot of
They're
moves.
moving around.
They're moving around. He sustains a knee injury and is coming off surgery. Averages 30.2 points a game.
Yeah, he is a scoring machine. You can't even deny it. Like they were saying, his one-on-one was almost, because he was so much quicker than the taller guys, and he was so much taller than the quick guys. So
yeah, by 69 though, his lawyer friends, Rosalind Littman and S. David Littman, who is also an attorney, they're the ones that filed the antitrust lawsuit, and back in 1966, combined with that and a Life magazine article by David Wolf, basically showing, here's why the NBA is wrong in screwing this poor man over.
Yes.
The NBA, upon the lawsuit and the evidence coming out, in addition to this Life magazine article where public opinion is probably not high on their side, they say, screw it, we have to settle.
Yeah.
We have to settle. We're going to get so much bad press. Connie got a $1.3 million cash settlement, which is dope, and gets to play in the NBA.
The thing I saw that I thought was pretty funny was the NBA was like, look, we have to settle this because if we go to court and lose, we then can't bar players who actually gambled on games. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, yeah, he never gambled on anything. It was like, yeah, no, that's why we have to settle.
Taking $200 and repaying a guy who probably doesn't live above the line of legality, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing necessarily illegal. It's not like you're point shaving. You're just, I need to pay for a chemistry textbook.
So finally, he gets to go to the NBA, and it's a coin toss.
It is.
As to where he goes, and you're probably thinking like, oh, that's a great phrase that you're using. No. They flipped a coin to see what team he ended up on.
And where does he go, Chris?
Goes to the Phoenix Suns over the Sonics.
Expansion Phoenix Suns,
yeah,
too.
first year. And they were saying how important it was because he was like that star that people would want to come and see because he would drop 30, 40 a game, you know?
I must admit, number one, he gives an expansion team like Phoenix some legitimacy because Phoenix in the late 60s, early 70s is not the Leviathan type of sprawl that we have today.
They got those purple unis. They're not looking great.
They're looking fantastic with those short. And Connie with his Fu Manchu and those mutton chops and that afro. Ooh, baby. That looking just fantastic. Making Karl Malone look like a bitch.
Well, he is.
Well, that's very true. I did find it funny, though, how the Pipers tried to re-sign him after they moved back to Pittsburgh.
I thought that was funny, too, because they were like, so we set up this lawsuit so you can get in the NBA. Do you want to re-sign with us? No.
Shot in the dark, Connie, but how would you feel about dominating against lesser competition and wasting more of your prime? We love you, but come on. No. So in 69, there was a lot of buzz, though, like, is he that good?
Yes.
Is he that good?
Because now we're finally into the top league.
27, 28-year-old rookie, but still recovering from knee surgery, plays in 81 games, averages almost 25 and 10 with almost 5 assists a game.
Yep.
That was one underrated thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, his rebounding with one arm, oh, my God.
It's such a classic
Iconic.
NBA of that era where they literally, it's almost just like smooth jazz.
It is just jazz cigarettes at the time in the stands. But he was a great passer.
Yep.
Just a very understood how the just high basketball IQ. Just knew where to send the ball on every play. And for a power forward, that was pretty sweet, I must say. The final game of the season had 44 points, 20 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 blocks, and 5 steals. That's almost a quintuple double.
I was just going to say, that stat line is so insane. It's, especially with the 20 rebounds. That's something that you kind of forget. You're just like, there's so many fucking rebounds.
I mean, it's a shame, like, what he could have been.
Yep.
Say he goes and plays for the Celtics or someone, or the Lakers.
Or, any kind of competitor. Because in the first year, they end up going to the playoffs and losing to this dominant Lakers team.
You have Wilt, the Stilt, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor.
Yep.
Did an episode on him. Check that out.
But I literally thought that when I looked at that, I was like, oh yeah, what if he was on that team? So like, say he had been in the NBA for like a couple of years or whatever, like, and he ends up on like a great team. It's like, oh yeah, that would have been so fun.
That would have been like,
if the NCAA and the NBA didn't screw him over.
We've had some episodes where guys have gotten dicked over. I don't think we've had one where it's been this awful for them doing nothing wrong.
Yes, which is why the lawsuit was so obvious and that was the thing that the NBA was just like, I bet their lawyers were like, we have to settle this or we can never charge anybody or ban anybody again, and they're just like, all right, we'll settle it.
Could you imagine though if they didn't do that, like how hard gambling would have gone in? It would have destroyed the league.
Yes.
Like you would have needed, like we talked in our Black Sox episode, someone going like, you're all fired.
Yes. We're clearing the fucking everything. Like,
you don't have jobs anymore.
But that's kind of what they did with the blanket. It was just so bad to Hawkins because he literally was just like, so I was physically unable to do that. And they were just like, still.
Sorry, Connie.
Still, my man.
But Connie, you're a student athlete.
Yes.
So
you took two. Yeah. So ridiculous.
So the next 3 seasons, averaging almost 21 points a game, 16, almost 9 rebounds, and then almost 4 or 5 assists.
All-star.
All-star every single season, first team All-NBA. He's a legitimate star. It's like you have to be as like an NBA coach going like, what the hell would he have done in his early 20s?
Yeah.
Like, what would he have done? And to his credit, he's put the Suns on the map as a legitimate franchise, almost like we talked with Vince Carter and the Raptors.
Yes, seriously. That's a great assessment. And he was one of the first guys to really play above the rim like Vince Carter. So he was that.
He brought style and panache because this is still an era where the ABA exists.
Yep.
Where you're having guys like Dr. J and David Thompson just absolutely lighting it up. He brought the best of the ABA to the NBA before the leagues merged.
Yeah.
So October 30th, 1973. The Suns unfortunately missed the playoffs all of those seasons. He's traded to the LA Lakers.
Yes.
Traded to the Lakers.
But this is where they say like the knee injury kind of starts to affect him, even though because I was looking at how many games he played.
Yeah.
He still played like 75 games in this season because that's what they were saying because the Suns were like, well, he's not going to be our number 1 guy anymore. And we're going to make this trade. And then I looked at it. I was just like, yeah, he still played almost every single game. And that was the other thing. He plays a shit ton of minutes.
And he does it. I mean, they built people different in those days,
Yeah.
Chris. They really did. They're load management. What is that?
It's crazy.
73-74, 13 points, 7.4 rebounds, 5.3 assists for those Lakers.
He was the first real point forward. That's what I feel like.
Oh, man. His game is so designed for now.
Yes. It's ridiculous because he really was a 6'9", silky smooth, given that 69.
Playing one-on-one, the amount of zones he could have just destroyed.
Oh, my God.
Like,
yeah.
Oh, man. So injuries limited him in 74, 75, and 76. 74 and 75, only 43 games for the Lakers. And then in 75, 76, even though he plays 74 games for the Hawks, he's averaging only 8 a game.
Yeah. So he goes to the Hawks for his last season.
Yeah, which is what could have been with this dude.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's like what could have been, how great that he was. People had always talked, Doug Moe, who was actually head coach of the Nuggets, who played against him in the ABA, was involved in that scandal. That's why he played in the ABA.
Yep.
When he was in college. He told Sports Illustrated. He was the first guy on that Dr. J, Michael Jordan level. Long strides, hold it in one hand, wheel it around. Nobody had an answer for that. he was iconic. He was the first of somebody for later guys to be influenced by, essentially.
And he almost got pretty much like pigeonholed into being a Globetrotter instead of being like this literally first NBA. He probably would have had like 10 All-Star. You know what I mean? Like, you look at those records, you're just like, oh, yeah, he would have been an All-Star every single year. Like,
would have been, if he was on a better team,
a
non-expansion team, would have
champion.
Been the postseason moments that he would have had outside of an ABA title.
Well, he did say the ABA, when they did win it, he felt like, because he was unsure if he was ever going to go to the NBA, he was like, well, this is my world championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was right with that, but...
And said he had no animosity by the time he got to play in the NBA. He was just excited to play at the highest level, which was...
Well, they gave him $1 million and said you can play. That was the thing that part. I actually loved, because they were just like, you know what, next year you are going to play. Here's $1 million.
Here's $1 million. So finished his career, 18.1 points a game. These are NBA stats, not when he's just lighting people up. 8.8 rebounds, 4.1 assists. 4-time All-Star, 1-time first-team All-NBA. Number 42, retired by the Suns.
Which it should, because he was their first superstar ever.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then in 1992, finally makes the Naismith Hall of Fame for basketball, which was long overdue. Don't see a lot of guys with his stats in there, but when you realize what he meant to basketball and how good he actually was, you know, what his peers discussed. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree.
Worked in community relations for the Suns after his career ended. Went back to Rucker Park a lot and played basketball, too.
Yep.
And then October 6, 2017, ended up dying of cancer.
Yep.
Which, very unfortunate, but just as unfortunate what could have been with him. Even though he's a Hall of Famer, it's almost like Jackie Robinson, where it's taken, like you enter towards the end of your prime as opposed to like just lighting people up at the beginning.
And like we kind of said, like his game would have built different. He probably would have even been better, which is kind of crazy to think that he might have been like a triple-double machine. You know what I mean? Like on a good team, he could have been averaging 12 assists. And
oh my God, right? Like he would have changed the NBA a lot faster than it did.
Yep.
So Connie Hawkins, everybody.